before the bell here on MMA Oddsbreaker. Of course, that's Nick Kalikas. I'm Frank Trigg. This week, we have UFC Fight Night down in Sao Paulo. Brunson versus Machida as the main event. But first, of course, as always, we talk about the co-main event. Demian Maia versus Colby Covington. Maia, of course, is ranked 3rd. Colby Covington is ranked 7th. Maia is... I can't say enough good things about him. I mean, his game, yeah, a lot of people find it boring because it's so technical, but it improves every single time. He finds a way to stuff you. He finds a way to stall you. Yes, was that match between him and Tyron Woodley extremely boring to most fans? To me, it was extremely exciting for what Tyron had to do to make that fight to be winnable for him. If he got baited into the ground game, he would have got destroyed. Everybody knows that. So, to me, in my opinion, Maia just needs to get this to the ground as quickly as possible, make a statement with this one, especially since it's in Brazil, to beat the number 7 ranked Colby Covington. I got to think that the fans are betting Maia, but there can't be much action on Maia because people just aren't really attuned to his game yet.
Actually, they're all betting Covington. It's just one of the things, that they understand the storyline here, and the storyline really is, I mean, Covington's the up-and-coming guy. Maia had that title shot. He didn't succeed. So let's get that former title contender beat, and let's make a new one. I mean, that's basically the storyline. And stylistically, for Maia, this should be kind of a tricky matchup because he's facing another wrestler that should keep the fight upright and should have a little bit of a striking edge over Maia. Now, Woodley was a similar type of matchup, but I think Woodley was obviously the more dangerous fighter because he has way more knockout power than Covington. His striking's ahead of Covington at this point, at this stage in their career. But that being said, Covington still should have a slight edge on the feet, and the wrestling should kind of neutralize each other out if he fights smart, right? Right now, you're seeing the odds actually minus 135 for Covington. The comeback up plus 115. And the bettors have taken this Covington line up even higher, but now we're starting to see some sharper action actually come in on Maia as the underdog, and it's bringing the line back to reality a little bit because this is an interesting fight. It's a close fight.
Well, part of it, too, I got to believe, obviously now there's 2 weigh-ins that happen for every event. There's the official weigh-in from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., and then you have the media weigh-in that happens at 4 p.m. But everyone knows, we all know what the results are at 9 to 11. We've all seen them already. We've seen the photos from all the different websites posting them out there. I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, I believe a lot of bettors kind of wait until they see the weigh-ins, see what the guys look like at the weigh-ins, and they look like Demian looks like a little bit better in shape. He looked a little bit easier to recover because it is about the recovery now after making weight. And I believe that a lot of the bettors are going, oh, Demian is looks like he's in great shape. He should be okay. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt at this point. Is that in my opinion, that's why the bettors are coming in now heavy on Demian Maia, the late bettors. Is that kind of the same theory that you have too?
I mean, some of that. There's a little bit of everything. I mean, I think a lot of fighters or a lot of bettors do prefer to wait until the fighters weigh in, like you're just here. So there's some action that probably came in because of that reason. But a lot of times it's going to be, scattered throughout the week. And then on fight day, obviously, we get heavier action because that's, last minute people wait a lot of times, last minute to make their wagers as well. So, or after weigh in. So it all depends. I think the pro bettors out there, especially if they're on the fence a little bit and they're not sure to pull the trigger, they wait till the weigh-in to see if the fighters look healthy, they look okay, and then they might pull the trigger if they see, something they like or dislike. So yes, there is definitely something to that. But in this case, I just think it's honestly to the point where Covington just got bet too high. And I think all the smarter bettors out there that know the game well know that Maia, even though Covington is a wrestler, Maia might beat him at his own game. And if he gets Covington's back, it could be a wrap that quick. So Maia's a very dangerous opponent, and it's hard to lay the chalk against him in the welterweight division, really.
Yeah, it really is. There's a situation where you've got really, man, this one's a tough one for me to lay the line, especially with the way the bet's going. My biggest question is how do you see, you're saying everything you told us before is that Colby Covington's going to win this fight. Everything that you said is going to be neutralized, it's going to be a wrestler standpoint. How can Demian win this fight if the wrestling's going to keep him on his feet the entire time? And we all know that his striking is not his game. He doesn't have the ability to strike. So it's going to be a serious situation of, if I don't get this to the ground, again, like with Tyron, I'm not going to be able to win this fight. How do you see that happening?
Well, I think that, Demian Maia is so tricky with the way he goes about getting your back or getting to the ground, the fight to the ground. He's not a normal, typical wrestler, right? Mm-hmm. So Woodley had to really come up with a smart game plan and really implement that game plan well, and he did. He wasn't really in that much trouble that entire fight, but that's Woodley. He was able to successfully follow his blueprint and to victory, but I think a lot of fighters have failed in the past. Maia's faced tremendous wrestlers in the past, and he's beaten them. He's faced another grappler that's high level in Gunnar Nelson, and Gunnar Nelson started off relatively well in that fight, but then the tables turned quickly because if you want to grapple with Demian Maia, that's a huge mistake. Maia's going to beat you at your own game for sure. So Covington, I think it might be one of those situations where Covington might try to take this fight to the ground to just prove, hey, my wrestling's better than you. Check this out. I'll take you down. And then before you know it, he gets reversed. Maia hops on his back, and then it could be a wrap. Or up against a cage at times, too. Demian Maia likes to kind of sneak an angle and start taking your back, even if he's kind of grinding you up against a cage, and climb on your back, get the hooks in, and then he has your back there and drags you down. So Maia has ways to get the fight to the ground. Obviously, Covington's a very intelligent fighter.
Yeah.
I mean, he training partner and is a training partner of Masvidal, which just fought Maia recently and fought him to the limit. I mean, Masvidal performed really well in that fight. I mean, it was not a bad loss for him at all. It was close, really close. So Covington got to see firsthand, some of what Demian Maia has to offer as well. So there's also that to consider. As far as the pick goes for me, this is one of those fights where I do give the very, very slight edge, I guess, to Covington because he should be able to kind of implement that same game plan. But as far as the bet goes, I mean, if you're getting plus money on Demian Maia, where it's almost a coin flip fight with a very slight edge towards Covington, you got to go for the plus money here. I mean, I do think that people are underestimating Demian Maia just a little bit, and that's why you're seeing some of the sharper action come in there because he can control the ground, he can get your back in unorthodox ways at times, and once he has that position, I mean, there's not much you can do about it, right? So I think it's a dog or pass situation here again.
Okay, I like it. I'm in full agreement with you on this one too, and let's not forget it's in Brazil, and traditionally speaking, statistically speaking, Brazilians tend to win more often in Brazil than any other country in the world right now as far as the stats go. So there's always that limit where you're like, okay, it's Demian Maia, where do I go? What's going to happen? Oh, it's in Brazil. Okay, I got to stick with Maia or I got to leave this one alone. So I like it. Let's move on to Derek Brunson and Lyoto Machida. Very interesting matchup. Obviously, Derek Brunson's number 7. Lyoto Machida is unranked at this point. And obviously a great competitor. We've seen some highlight reel knockouts, especially with his front kick and his karate style with Lyoto Machida. Brunson is a super stud. I mean, incredibly gifted athletically, but then works hard as well, which is a very rare talent in the sport right now where he's very athletic, but then works and trains and grinds to the betterment of his ability every day. First, tell me what's the line on this fight.
Line is actually minus 155 for Brunson. He's favored, and the comeback on Machida is around plus 135. So a slight edge towards Brunson in this fight. I mean, Machida's been out for a couple years on top of suffering bad defeats recently as well. And Brunson's kind of been on the climb as far as overall respect, rankings, everything of that nature. I know he had a tough loss to Whitaker not long ago, but, since that fight, he had another tough loss to Anderson Silva. But the problem with that fight was a lot of people believe he should have won that fight. So it's kind of one of those things. Judges got it wrong. They do it a lot. So Brunson is definitely on the upscale. Like he's trending in the right direction because he's also complementing his wrestling with his striking ability, his knockout power now. So he does have some knockout power on the feet. And if he's able to get you to the ground, typically he's able to do what he wants with you on the ground as well. So Machida's been losing to wrestlers. We've seen that. I mean, Romero beat him up bad on the ground, and Rockhold was able to destroy him on the ground as well. So if Brunson's able to get Machida to the ground, he might have his way with him here too. This is a tough fight for me, honestly, because we see the old Machida at all, like the Machida of a couple years ago before he kind of, what we're seeing is a little bit of a decline. He defeats Brunson easy. I think he would be a solid favorite in this fight because his takedown defense typically is pretty well. It's pretty good. And he's got that striking ability that he can knock out a wrestler, no problem. I mean, he can keep it on the feet, and his technique is better than Brunson, honestly. Brunson gets a little sloppy at times. So I think Machida's striking is better. But Machida now around 40 years old. His chin isn't what it was. And again, his takedown defense doesn't seem like it was. Been out for a while. So the writing's on the wall for him, kind of. And this is another spot where if Brunson wins, he moves up that ladder and gets another really good win on his resume.
For me, the biggest disparage of all that stuff you just said, the biggest thing that sticks out to me is you got to remember Machida has not been active. He has been on the sidelines. He has not been active. And in this sport, not being active is a very difficult task to come back from. It's going to take you a couple fights to get your stuff together, and unfortunately, with a guy like Lyoto Machida, he's a name, so he's got to be main event, co-main event, main card someplace. You can't have him on the undercard. If you're on the main card with him, you have to have a main card fighter against him, which is another tough super stud. He's not going to be able to get his way to build himself back up again. He's being thrown to the wolves every single time. And I really believe, like, personal opinion, I think this matchup is set up so that Brunson gets a big win in Brazil against another Brazilian, but makes it more competitive because the Brazilian's in Brazil, if that makes sense. So it's like I think they're really trying to set this up so that Brunson gets another great victory. But you're right, man. If we see even a half a round of the old Machida, if he can pull it together middle of the second round, all of a sudden he's back. You know, he's brilliant again. We're going to be talking about him all next week about how amazing Lyoto looked, and it only needs to be for 2.5 minutes to make that happen. He doesn't have to look great the entire fight. If he can just pull half a round together his old way, he can win this fight relatively easily. But he's almost 40. and his, like you said, his chin is not the same. He is definitely slowing down. He's on the back end of his career, which is unfortunate because he is so exciting. And I really believe now with the new media, the new promotions that's going on, obviously the new owners behind him, that he could be a bigger star than he was when he was in his heyday. And I would love to see that for a guy like Lyoto, but unfortunately it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. He's one of my all-time favorite fighters in the UFC. I mean, what he's accomplished throughout his career, it's amazing. So I hope he gets kind of that spark back and we see a glimpse of what we used to see with Machida. But I don't know. I'm not confident that we will. You know, I think, again, if Brunson implements the right game plan, he could win this fight. So I would pick Brunson, but I wouldn't lay the chalk here either, though. I don't trust Brunson. He's a bit chinny, too. I mean, it's not fair to say because he's been in there with some stud, power punchers. And he survived a lot of those times as well. But I don't really trust his chin. I don't really trust his cardio all that much. Now, those areas have improved. Like I said, his defense has improved a little bit. But he does sometimes get over-aggressive. He gets a little bit too anxious, and he comes in a little sloppy. With a sniper like Machida, I mean, he still has that knockout power, and it's instinct with him. I mean, he's been in the martial arts throughout, his whole life, obviously, since he was, a kid, a baby, or whatever, so it's in his family blood. I think he's never going to lose that kind of accuracy and that timing with it. Now, again, he might have slowed up a little bit. Maybe his body's not going to respond to what it used to. But I think if you're coming in sloppy on him, he can counter well, and he can put your lights out still. So Brunson has to be careful, keep his technique clean, be smart, and I think he can win the fight. So I would pick Brunson. I would probably stay away from this fight as far as the bet goes because, again, Machida with the time off, with what we've seen from him lately, I don't know if I'd be willing to put my money on Machida, though, either. So it's a tough spot.
Well, those are our picks for this week here on UFC Fight Night. Airs on Saturday, October 28th. Of course, it can be seen on Fight Pass coming up. Thanks again for watching us here on Before the Bell here on MMA Oddsmaker. We'll talk to you again next week.